Well, I mean, the root of all evil in this country is the astronomical price of housing, and that permeates. Once you understand that, and you understand that all, the ramifications of that in terms of costs and wages and so on, it really is the problem that's the root of all problems, in this country. Socioeconomists say that if the average or the median house divided by the median household income is 3 times or less, housing is affordable. And that's like our parents used to say back in 1982, I bought a house for 3 times my income, right?
Yeah.
Between 3 and 4 times, it's unaffordable. 4 and 5 times, it's severely unaffordable. And 5 times or greater, astronomically unaffordable. Sydney at the moment is 13.3 times, right? And it's the second most expensive housing market in the world outside of Hong Kong, which is a nice, attractive little island that's extremely dense, very small, next to the most populous nation in the world. So why would Australia, a relative backwater, 10 to 20 hours by air from really any major action around the world, have the most expensive housing in the world outside of HongOng?
Great beaches.
Well, there are great beaches other places.
Good steaks.
Good steaks. No, exactly. But you got to wonder why. Well, it's not because we're making any more babies. So every female on the planet needs to have 2.1 children to maintain the population. Australia is about 1.5, 1.6, and in fact hasn't been above 2.1 since 1975. And wages are not going up at the rate that housing's going up. In fact, at the moment, wages are in the greatest decline in real terms, purchasing power terms, ever. And in fact, for 20 to 24-year-olds in the last year, the real purchasing power of wages went back to 2008.
Wow.
Now, the price of everything else didn't. So what's going on? Like, why does Australia have some of the most expensive housing in the world? Sydney is the second most expensive. Australia, pretty much all the major capital city markets, including places like the Gold Coast, Winkarabee, and so forth, they're all in like the top 20 or so in the International Housing Survey by Demographia. So why?
Well, why?
Well, the answer is because the successive Australian governments, and this is not just the current government, although the current government's gone full Burko.
Yeah, we'll get to
But it's for the last 61 years, Australian house prices have gone up 86 times, right, in 61 years. And the reason why is because politicians have chosen a path of easy, relentless growth rather than talking to the engineers, the scientists, and the entrepreneurs about what to do to grow the economy and actually build a diversified and strong and complex and sophisticated economy. And instead, they've chosen to go the easy, relentless path of growth, and that is by pumping the housing market to the mother of all bubbles. And when I mean the mother of all bubbles, it is the mother of all bubbles, right? In 2008, in the global financial crisis in the United States, Australians were already twice as indebted to housing than the Americans. And the Australian banks were twice as exposed to residential mortgages as the US banks, 3 times the British banks, and 4 times the Hong Kong banks. And Hong Kong has got the most expensive property market in the world. So what they've done is just successive policy after policy after the policy of, well, how do we run the economy? Well, what do we do in the economy? We export dirt, dead trees, right?
Yeah.
And now gas from those dead trees and gold, right? So the dirt being iron ore, going to China to build apartments in a big construction boom to pump their GDP in some places, cities that don't get lived in, right? Coal to China to burn to make that steel, to build those apartments, and to Japan in the wake of Fukushima when they shut down the nuclear reactors, although those nuclear reactors are coming back online, although coal's needed everywhere now, and we've been lucky until recently. And then gold, because central banks around the world keep printing money, so the gold every year goes up about 9%. I mean, if you want something to invest in, just buy gold. 9% every year, just about every currency in the world, because central banks can't help themselves but to print money, which is effectively another form of taxation. And then gas, because you need to power energy, right? So what we have done for this easy, relentless growth is to have one of the world's leading, and by flip side of that, insane immigration programs. So we bring a lot of people into this country, an astronomical number of people in this country, to the point where now in New South Wales, for example, I think the stats are currently that 33% of people have both their parents born here, and I think 43% have both parents born overseas.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
It's, yeah, and the country is something like 30% of people in the country who are born overseas, and I think in New South Wales it's 35%. Right, so it's a huge program. In New South Wales, a population of only 8 million, 730,000 people are brought in. Were brought in last year. 730,000, population of 8 million. 450,000 moved out because it's too expensive to live here, mostly to Queensland or the country, and some overseas. And they're doing that because it keeps house prices up. The more people you've got in a certain area, the more the house prices stay up and go up. And the path of easy, relentless growth that the governments have had is to keep blowing up the biggest bubble you can possibly blow. And now we're at the point where it is insane. I think, was it yesterday in the paper or today, there's a dog box out in Erskineville for $4 million.
Yeah, I saw
right?
that.
I mean, how does that make any sense? At $1.2 million, which was the median household price a couple of months ago, it's mathematically impossible to pay off with the median household income.
I think the crazy thing with that as well, if we're looking at the same one, only 2 years ago it was bought for $2 million.
Yes.
So it's up. They've cleared over 2 million, excluding tax, of course, $2 million in 2 years in Erskineville.
It doesn't make any sense. Mathematically, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm sure it was Erskineville or something like Marrickville or something like that. But what's a good wage? I mean, the median wage is about $94,000 a year, where your take home is about $5,900 a month, right, after tax, right, on a $1.2 million mortgage. At the current rates, I think it's close to 7,000.
It's over $7,000.
Yeah,
Yeah,
7,000.
right.
And today, the RBA, was it 2:30 or something or other, is making a decision on whether to raise rates again.